What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench Podcast Network and channel, giving a shout out to the rest of the crew, for everyone who's tuning in. Thank you for supporting Behind the Bench. Subscribe to the channel. Help make this show the best that it can be. And as I alluded to at the beginning of the year, that me personally, I'm learning how to feature uh, actual video footage in my presentation, just to try to enhance the experience for people who's tuning in. So just give me a little more time and I'll get that down pat, and you will see the difference and see the improvements. Now check this out, man. Look, NBA, right? It's the greatest league in the history of professional basketball. It started off with a merger between the National Basketball League and the American, I believe it's called the American Basketball Association, if I'm not mistaken. ABA, NBL. And then they merged, that's right, to become the NBA. Now, what I notice about the history of the league is whatever ideas that were suggested and ultimately brought forth, it wasn't done so to me to try to improve the game per se. It was done so to promote competition, to raise the stakes, to elevate the bar. You see what I'm saying? From, implementing the 24-second shot clock. It used to be where you used to have 10 seconds to cross half court. Now it's 8 seconds. Okay. That was a good idea. That was an idea that was, as far as crossing half court from 10 seconds to 8 seconds, that was something that was implemented a little over 10 years ago. That was a good rule. That was a good rule. I didn't mind it at all. And then, presenting the All-Star game, which it elevated the league. It brought more enthusiasm because it's an exhibition of the greatest players in the league, the 24 greatest players in the world, going at it for one night. Oh man, it was awesome. And then to add more excitement, we're going to pit the Western Conference All-Stars versus the Eastern Conference All-Stars. And then we're going to select the All-Stars by position. And I guarantee, see, the changes that were made in the past, it was done so to increase the value of the league. So when you start adding more games, it went from, like, at one time, they may have started out playing like 60-some games. Then it went to 70-some games. Then like 78 games, then 80 games, then 81 games. And ultimately, they agreed to an 82-game schedule. I believe that started around like 1965, somewhere around there. And the decisions that were made then, you can see, looking back on it, how it elevated the game. It raised the stakes. But the changes that are being suggested now is devaluing the game. It's devaluing the game. Competition has become devalued. And what I'm trying to say is, man, when you have older fans who will watch this league or follow this league, and when you try to tell the youth generation that what they're seeing now could be a lot better. See, we're not trying to say that the previous eras were the end all be all. We're just saying that the standard was raised so high to where it could have continued, to where each generation will maintain that standard and represent their era in their own unique way in the process. You can do both. But what has happened is the changes have become so extreme, while at the same time, the talking heads try to convince people that today's game is that much more advanced than yesterday's, that has created a generational divide. old fans going against young fans and vice versa. Well, when I grew up watching the NBA as a teenager, mainly during the 80s and then as a young adult in the 90s, we didn't have those type of back and forths, man. And when I say that, I kid you not, it was mainly about who was the best player in the game at that time, that year, who was the best team in the league that year. They had to prove it the next year. They had to prove it the next year. It wasn't about Michael Jordan competing against the legacy of Dr. J, to where every performance of Michael Jordan is being compared to what Julius Erving did in the 70s or what Jerry West did in the 60s. It wasn't like that. No, it wasn't until Michael Jordan proved that his career would show that he should be viewed historically as a better basketball player. That's when that conclusion was made. That's when those statements were said. That's not what's happening now. It's like every time someone scored 30 points today, oh man, Embiid. I remember I was watching the game where I think Philadelphia 76ers were playing. I believe it was a playoff game. And I believe that was the year they had the number one seed. I think that was in 2021, the 21 postseason. And whoever they faced in the first round, because I know they lost the Atlanta Hawks in the conference Eastern Conference semifinals. Whoever they faced in the first round, commentator was like, "Oh man, Joel Embiid, man, he's the greatest scoring center of all time." And mind you, man, Joel Embiid is very talented, and he did lead the league in scoring consecutive years. But to sit there and say within 2 years that he's the greatest scoring center ever, you can't do that, especially when he has not had a lot of postseason success. When you start making blanket statements like that, man, what it does is, man, it discredits the standard. So what I'm getting at is there's clearly challenges facing the NBA. So when you have the commissioner, Adam Silver, make a statement like, he's considering shortening the quarters from 12 minutes a quarter to 10 minutes a quarter. I mean, when you start bringing up those type of suggestions now, something's wrong, because a college basketball game is 40 minutes. You have 2 20-minute halves. In high school, you have historically 32-minute game, 8 minutes per quarter. Because the commissioner said, well, my estimation in my what I've been able to ascertain is other basketball leagues globally, they're playing 40 minutes a game, and NBA is the only league that plays 40 minutes a game. I like, exactly, it's for a reason. This is the greatest basketball league that's ever been created. So therefore, it should stand out above the rest. It should stand out above the rest. So when you suggest a change like that, you're lowering the bar. You are devaluing the game. What I'm trying to say is, man, all the players back then who was, look, when I came up watching the NBA and other fans of the NBA in past generations, we didn't hear complaints about 48 minutes. We didn't hear complaints about back-to-backs, like 4 games in 5 nights. That's how TNT, when TNT started covering the NBA and started televising NBA games, that's what they built their whole mantra off of, 4 games in 5 nights. We didn't hear complaints about the 82-game schedule. The court dimension was the same. The court is like 92 feet long, about 46 feet wide, 45, 46 feet wide. The goal is 10 feet high from the ground. The basketball, the only change is it used to be Spalding, and now they play with Wilson basketball. But the dimension of the basketball is still the same. Nothing has changed. The 24-second shot clock has been in existence since what, like before the 50s started. 3 years into the NBA existence. So what I'm trying to say is, man, these changes are more cosmetic, but it's not getting to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is the game has been devalued. You know, you changed the All-Star game format like 10 years ago. I think that was around 20, was that like 2015, 2016? You eliminate the traditional format, East versus West. It was never an issue with it because the notion of both conferences, the 24 best player in the world, you know, competing against each other in the greatest exhibition of the NBA, they took pride in it, man. They competed. Now, like in the first quarter, man, you may see some theatrics, man. You may see, you know, like Tracy McGrady. I think he was the first player to ever throw the ball off the glass in the All-Star game and catch it in the air and dunk it. And then Vince Carter did it later. Stuff like that, man. But it was within the confines of competition, though. You know, but come second half, man, both teams buckle down, man. They playing hard. They represent the league. They represent their team. They represent the fans. They represent the history of the game. So when you change the format from team this guy to team that guy, it generates more of a playground feel. It no longer feel like a professional basketball exhibition of the 24 greatest players in the world. And then the commissioner agreed to, to create more enthusiasm, by the participants of the game. We're going to eliminate the traditional format of whoever scores the most points by game's end, they win. Then they changed it to, the first team to score 25 points in each quarter, they, that team gets awarded. They win I think it's like a $500,000, $500,000, $1 million, and then they can donate that money to the charity of their choice. In the first year, the players play hard, and then after that, man, it lost momentum under that newfound format, and you right back to square one. Okay. And they come up with these constant changes, man, to where All-Star Weekend now, man, is more like it's more like a circus, man. The slam dunk competition has lost its way. They really should put it into it. But the reason they try to keep it going, because they're trying to hope for a situation where you see, mano-mano battle like we saw with Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan back in the day. Instead of saying, you know what, man, let's set aside a dunk contest for a couple years, man. Let it reinvigorate itself until superstars participating again. Once again, they only have four participants active in this dunk contest. And you got Matt McClung, he's not an NBA player, he's a G League player. And the dunk competition is supposed to be for NBA players, not G League players. And it's going to be lackluster again. They're going to try to hype it up, gas it up, but it's not like it was in the past. So I believe where the NBA is at right now, and hopefully the commissioner, Adam Silver, man, what he needs to realize is, man, he don't need to reinvent the wheel. What he should do is go back to basics, man, and start, promoting, promote this young talent. Promote Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Promote like a Jalen Green for the Houston Rockets. It's so much young talent in this league to promote, man. Look at what Ivica Zubac is doing for the Clippers. But they really don't highlight him, man. During the game, they may say something, but consistently saying, man, this young man, he out here balling, having and he should have been an all-star this year. But he wasn't selected, but he should have been. But next year, I believe he'll have the opportunity to do so. But, like I said, you don't want to discredit the long-standing veteran superstars of the game that's been representing your league for the past 15, 20 years. You don't want to shun them, but it has to be a balance, man. And the NBA's not doing that. And the commissioner, man, he has this golden opportunity. Like he's trying to, expand the NBA to appeal to a global audience. Well, look at your league MVPs. Really, out of the past 6 years, Giannis won back-to-back league MVPs. in 2019-2020. Led the Milwaukee Bucks to their first championship in 50 years since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Lou Alcindor. Nikola Jokic, won back-to-back league MVPs, won his third league MVP last year. Embiid, who's international born, I believe from Nigeria, but he could have represented, I guess, his home country of France during the Olympics, but he chose to represent the United States. But nonetheless, he won league MVP last year. Now you have Sage Gilgeous-Alexander from Canada. He's really taking his game to the next level. Oklahoma City Thunder is first place in the Western Conference, man. And it's like the international player. And I think what it is, man, they want to appeal to the international audience, but they still want the American player to remain prominent in terms of being the most popular figures. But at this point, man, whoever's the best, that's who you should promote. When Giannis led Milwaukee to the title, man, he should have got shine all off season. They talked about him for 3 days. Then the talking heads tried to discredit him, saying, well, he was on the super team, which he was not. His second best player was Chris Middleton, who was brought up through the G League. And they should have celebrated Giannis, man, because what he did, that closeout game versus Phoenix, and that was a darn good finals series. Phoenix, went up 2-0, and then Giannis, man, put the team on his back to tie the series. Arguably the greatest block in the history of the finals in Game 4 when he kind of baited Phoenix into passing the ball to DeAndre Ayton, and then he reacted to the pass and then blocked Ayton's shot. Where if Phoenix would have won that game, they would have went up 3-1. The series would have been over. He tied the series. They go back to Phoenix, go up 3-2. And then he had the greatest closeout game in the history of the NBA championship round. 50 points, 15 rebounds, 7-19 shooting from the free throw line, 5 block shots. That's the greatest closeout game in league history. And they didn't celebrate it. It was brought back to the old conversation, which we all know who I'm talking about. And the NBA, man, it can generate another golden era. But I believe what is holding the NBA back, in closing, and hopefully the commissioner, man, and this video is really not about trying to criticize the commissioner. It's about what the commissioner should be looking at. To me, the 3 or 4 things that's holding this league back. Number 1, player empowerment. Player empowerment has had a negative impact on the league. Yes, players are supposed to have influence. The players are the reason why we watch the NBA. That's power within itself. But player empowerment, which didn't even come into basketball lexicon until 2014, it was really defined and coined by talking heads to try to rationalize a situation where superstar players are taking control, putting pressure on franchises to make hasty decisions for the short-term benefit, but it sets the franchise back for years and years. Load management. Manipulating the system to stretch the schedule out, to eliminate the back-to-backs. But the only way you can do that, you have to cut into the beginning of the season, training camp and preseason. But what happens is, training camp, this go around, really only lasted 3 days. Whereas decades ago, you had teams, man, they normally had 3-4 week training camps. That's before the preseason. They would have like 8 preseason games. So your body is fine-tuned for the 82-game season. That's why you didn't hear people complain about the 82-game season back then, because they was in shape at the start of the season. The Karl Malone's giving you 81 games a year. John Stockton played all 82 games like 14 times in his career. He only missed 22 games in his 19-year career. Michael Jordan, 82 games 9 times. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was always in great shape. He giving you like 70 at the center position, 78 games on average. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I can go on and give you example after the example because they was in shape, man. You know what I'm saying? They was ready for the 82 game schedule. But what's happening is the players want so much control and they're trying to maximize their recovery time. But what's happening is devaluing the regular season. And that's why the commissioner had to come up with an idea to spark interest when the regular season itself should be the only interest that needs to be sparked when the season starts. So he had to come up with this concept called what's it called? The in-season tournament, the NBA World Cup, to stoke interest. Now, initially, in the first year, yeah, people gonna tune in and see what it's like, but it's already running its course. Ratings were down compared to last year, and then overall the ratings, I think like since 2012, has declined by 48%. It's because the game is being devalued. It's not about the talent, it's about devaluation. When superstars join forces and make super teams, form super squads, the superstar mentality becomes undervalued, undercut. You see what I'm saying? And then roles get discombobulated. You know, then all of a sudden role players, when the super team model begins to wither, then the role players are expected to perform like superstars. And when they don't meet expectation, fans start calling for trades. And they're not even a reason for the perception that they're playing bad. Or the third superstar has to shut his game down and wind up looking like a role player. See, it's all out of whack. And that's why those championship teams back then, whoever won the title, man, they stand out more. They stand out more because the teams were built in the truest sense of the word. Okay, so as Michael Jordan always said, the guy that they're trying to eliminate from basketball consciousness, as he always say, be true to the game and the game will be true to you. You see, be true to the game and the game be true to you. And you'll be viewed exactly how you should be viewed. So what I'm trying to say is, man, you can't lower the bar from something that's been established that literally elevated the game to unforeseen levels, unforeseen achievement, unforeseen excitement. So basically what I'm trying to say is, man, as I said, player empowerment, super team devalued the whole process of real team building. It devalued coaching. It devalued position basketball. It devalued the importance of developing young talent. It devalued draft picks. It devalued fans being patient watching young players or rookies grow and improve. Instead of looking at them like, man, if we got to include him, it'd be part of a package, man, bring a third star, man. You know, we in win now mode. You didn't hear win now mode back then, man. Wherever team that was dominant back then, Showtime Lakers, you didn't hear win now. They set a standard. Bird McHale Parrish, the 80 Celtics, they call it Celtic pride in the 80s. It wasn't about win now. Bad Boy Pistons built up over 8 years after drafting Isaiah Thomas in 1981. It wasn't about win now. Now, did they make changes every year to improve the team? And drafted, they drafted Joe Dumars, they drafted John Sally, drafted Dennis Rodman and whatnot. Yeah. But that's what you call team building. And then they made key moves along the way. Chicago Bulls. That wasn't win now. It's more like your moment of truth when you built your team to a point where you know you right there. And you just have to cross the finish line. That's what you call the moment of truth. Hakeem Olajuwon, 10 years before he won his first title. See, what I'm trying to say is, man, one great team and player elevated the performance of the other great team and great player. You see what I'm saying? But now it's a devaluation process. And the final thing that's keeping the league back is this GOAT talk, man. This GOAT talk, dog. Even when Michael Jordan was dominating, man, during the 90s, leading the Chicago Bulls to all them championships, it wasn't this GOAT talk every day. It wasn't, Jordan win a title and then they talk about what someone didn't do or why didn't so-and-so win in 1960. That's essentially what's happening now. You didn't have nobody on the show talking about, well, why didn't such and such win in the first round back in 1962 and the current year at that time was 1992. You see what I'm saying? It's ludicrous what's going on. So this GOAT talk, and I believe what's happening is too, like the thing with Jordan is when he returned back, it's for all the young basketball fans out here, man, because I'm going to tell it to you like it is. As a member Behind the Bench, Sports Network. When Jordan returned back in 1995, they didn't say he was even though he was viewed as the greatest player ever seen when he retired in 93, when he returned back in 95, the league was already moving. They didn't really expect Jordan to return back. They was Penny Hardaway was looked to be the heir apparent, even more so than Grant Hill. At the Grant Hill rookie year, but Grant Hill was more like, and he was a hell of a player, man. If he never had no foot injuries, he'd have been a top 5 player in the league. Matter of fact, before he got hurt, he was a top 5 player in the league. And I think he eventually could have led Detroit to a championship. But what I'm trying to say is, man, when Jordan came back, man, the top players considered was Hakeem Olajuwon, the Shaqs, the David Robinsons, Penny Hardaways, you know what I'm saying, Charles Barkley, people like that. Then the Malones and Stocktons and the Sean Kemps and the Gary Payton, people like that. They didn't. The question was, could Jordan return back to his form before he retired in 93? That was the challenge. And when he lost and fell short against Orlando, they thought he was done. They thought Penny had took over. So going to that next year, man, they weren't saying Jordan was the best player in the league. They weren't saying that. He had to prove it. You see what I'm saying? And then he had to prove it the next year. Then he had to prove it the next year. It wasn't about every game. Oh man, he the greatest ever. No, by season's end, when he hoisted the trophy, and when he won that last trophy in 98, when he hit that shot on Utah to seal it, on Brian Russell, Bob Costa said, man, we're looking at the greatest athlete in the history of professional team sports. He cemented his legacy as the greatest player ever. That's what was being said. It was proven within the realm of competition at that moment. It wasn't said so as trying to prove something, try to prove a point at the expense of the history of the game. This GOAT talk has created a lot of chaos. It's created a lot of misinformation. The history of the game has been misrepresented in a lot of ways to try to prove a point. And as a result, it's created two things. And I'm going to shut it down to this. I believe the GOAT talk has led a lot of young players, superstars that are trying to establish themselves, to become frustrated because their efforts aren't being recognized. Therefore, I think they may have developed the attitude like, well, why should I give my full effort? I'm not getting the recognition for it. Also, in the same breath, you have young stars like Anthony Edwards, who was led to conclude that based on the narrative that's been cooked up by these talking heads over the past 7 years or so, well, the only player back then who had skill was Michael Jordan. Like, are you kidding me, dog? Are you kidding me? All the great basketball players that ever played this game, and the only person who was skilled back then was Michael Jordan? That's what happens, man, when you kicking out these narratives around the clock every day. Everything is thrown out of whack. It's not based on competition. It's not based on winning. It's based on narratives. And that's why the commissioner should intervene, man, and be like, time out for this nonsense, man. See, you can watch the present and say, man, these dudes out here balling in the league. You can do that. But during the 2010s, the 2000s, that was the same case. Whoever was dominant and prominent during those previous decades, they were balling too. And that's why you can't compare eras. And it should be based on what you did during the time that you played. And then by career end, then you can do your comparisons and say, okay, I think, based on what they achieved, man, they should go down as a greater basketball player. And it really should come down to winning, man. Winning. That's what sports is supposed to be about, right? It ain't just about getting to the Super Bowl. When you get to the Super Bowl in the NFL, you want to win it. It's about winning it. You see? And that's why Michael Jordan raised the bar so high, man, because realistically, he could have won 8 straight championships. Let's just be real, not kid ourselves. Because he retired at 30 years old. Right? He retired after only playing 9 years in the NBA. Because he conquered everything. So it was almost like him saying, I conquered the sport, so I'm gonna go retire. I'm gonna go retire and go play another sport. I'm gonna spot the league too. He wound up coming back and racked off another 3 straight. And that's why I say realistically, he could have won 8 straight. It wasn't like he came back and then, fell short a couple years and never did win another one. No, he came back and won another 3 straight. And then retired again, like, I'm out of here. And then the Kobe Bryant, man, and Kobe is my guy. He's my favorite player, man. I had a joy watching him win 5 championships for the Los Angeles Lakers. He helped lead the way. That was a joy. 5 championships, man. Played his whole career for one team, man. So what I'm saying is, man, the NBA needs to get back to basics, man, and let the game dictate how things should be presented and represented. And stop all this, trying to misrepresent history, try to prove a point, because the history is going to win out in the end anyway. The history is going to speak for itself. When you get through all this clutter, man, and once all this chaos ends, you're going to always have someone who's going to go back in history and really research it. Always. I'm mainly talking about young people. I ain't talking about like people like myself, because I'm older. But what I love, what I appreciate, I've always appreciated the history of the game, man. And whatever I say, I ain't here to try to con nobody. Because the history is going to show anyway. See, that's the thing. The history is going to prove itself anyway. There's been countless books written about the history of the NBA. That's how I learned. From listening to other people. Firsthand accounts, man. People who played in the game. Coaches who coached in the league back then. That's how I learned. Or people who, I grew up around, man, who love basketball. And I listened to what they got to say. And they gave us stories about, Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West. I'm like, wow, man, these guys were awesome. You know what I'm saying? But now you got guys coming on TV talking about plumbers and firemen, and you got these young cats out here ingesting that poison pill, and they saying the same thing. But they missing out on a great opportunity to understand what made this league so great. And they will understand why the standard is so important. Like I said, you ain't got to be the greatest ever to be respected. Like Michael Jordan didn't become Michael Jordan until he became Michael Jordan. People got to remember, man, when he played 3 years of college, he was on the last Olympic team to win gold medal that featured college players in the process of entering the NBA. He was on the last U.S. basketball team featuring college players to win the gold medal. Right? So he enters the NBA. He's about, now remember, he played in 3 years in college, North Carolina. And the joke was, used to always say, the only person who could keep him under 20 points was Dean Smith. You see, and a lot of young fans are led to believe that, if you got to go to college, that means you're a lesser player. No, what that means is college is the next phase of your basketball career where you truly hone your skills to excel at the pro level without the manipulation having to take place to make you look like that you're something that you're not. And I guarantee you, since I just thought about that, I guarantee you, if the league required players, it's not about an age thing, it's about experience. To say, you got to at least play 2 years, preferably college basketball, because G League is really for players, should be for players that after playing college, they need that little additional time they're not really good enough to make that jump to the NBA right away. And the G League is a viable source to get that additional development to prepare you to make a contribution to the NBA. That's what the G League is for to me. But if they say you got to play 2 years of college basketball, I guarantee you this league would be more sound and the American basketball player will return back to their former level. See, the international player is getting the development overseas that the American player used to get in college. See, a lot of stuff, if people just use logic and stop listening to these talking heads right now, see, the people who used to cover basketball back then, I'm talking about pro and college. They was on point. I'm telling you. They'll take these dudes, these talking heads, man, they'll send them on their way. And you can tell, if you took some real basketball historians, I'm talking about real basketball historians, and you had them sitting there on that panel with them talking heads, while everybody tuning in, I guarantee you can tell off the bat who knows what they talking about and who truly appreciate and respect the history of the game. They won't even have to bring up who to go. They'll talk about the history of the game. They gonna tell you, like one talking head to say, well, Michael Jordan couldn't beat the Celtics, but a real historian gonna say, well, they gonna remind you what Larry Bird said of Michael Jordan. Going up against him, coming off a broken foot. And Larry Bird said he was God disguised as Michael Jordan. Kevin McHale said, I never thought anyone can do something like that to us, the Boston Celtics, when he dropped that 63 points. And I saw that game. And he was hitting shots all over the court. Jumpers, pull-ups, 20-footers, 22-footers, 15-footers, reverses, layups, dunks, baseline, pumps, double teams. He gave it the entire repertoire. And that's why Kevin McHale said, I never imagined anybody doing that to the Boston Celtics. That's what they're going to tell you. See, it's all about logic. It's all about logic. You don't see the teardown of past greats in baseball because them baseball historians going to make sure, man, that them luminaries from the past, man, black and white and Latino and Asian, they going to get their props. You can't do this in football because of the nature of the sport where it's all determined on the field anyway. You can't create narratives in the NFL. But only in basketball, and the only reason that we see this taking place now, because they're trying to downplay what Michael Jordan accomplished in his league and the standard that he set and the bar that he raised, man. And like I said, Kobe Bryant is my guy. And I'm going to root for Kobe Bryant over anybody. But at the end of the day, I respect the history of the game. And I saw Michael Jordan's career, man. And I'm going to tell you, from his rookie year, he came in the league averaging 20. Look at Victor Wembanyama, 7'4", right? He had a great rookie year, man. I think they said he really should have made first team All NBA defense. I think he made it. If not, people saying he should have made it. He averaged around 19, 20 points as a rookie. He had a great rookie year. A lot of great rookies. LeBron had a great rookie season for himself. Carmelo Anthony had a great rookie season for himself. Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal, Lonzo Mourning, Grant Hill, AI. I can go on and on, man. But this man came in the league averaging 28.2. He was already considered a top 5 player by his rookie year. The bar needs to be raised again. And to do that, instead of saying, well, guys back then couldn't shoot, well, somebody was putting the ball through the basket. Somebody's putting the ball through the basket in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Somebody was putting the ball through the basket. So if a guy come on these shows and say they couldn't shoot, it don't even add up. When they try to say they couldn't shoot, they're talking about 3-pointers. Man, I watched the game the other day. Lakers played Utah in the playoffs in '88 in the conference semifinals. Man, they was shooting a 3-point shot with the same proficiency. The difference is they just wasn't taking as many of them. That's the only difference. They weren't taking as many of them, but they was hitting it with the same proficiency. And they was hitting them. It was more like a momentum shot, like a dagger shot. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just coming down, jacking up a 3, just to jack up a 3. That's the only difference, man. That's what I'm saying, man. I'm going to tell it to basketball fans, regardless of the era, regardless of their age, I'm going to tell it to them exactly like it is. That's how much I love the game, man. That's how much I respect. I respect the players today. They out there playing. Now, I think the mentality has been impacted negatively because of this player empowerment, but that ain't gonna last. That ain't gonna last always. That's not gonna last always. This is just a front that's going on now that it won't last. It is losing momentum as we speak because the players that are at the forefront of this movement, they're getting a lot of pushback anyway. So, like I said, man, I didn't mean for this video to be long. Like I said, man, the commissioner, Adam Silver, man, he need to take a look at a lot of stuff, man. All he had to do is just get back to basics, man. He don't have to reinvent the wheel, man. But you can't be manipulating the game like that, reducing, 10-minute quarters, in-season tournaments. You don't need no in-season tournament. Notice what happened in closing. Notice what happened for the 2 teams that won the tournament. Last year, the Lakers won the first in-season tournament, and they had an emotional letdown for the next 10 games because you're not supposed to be celebrating the title, quote unquote, 2 months into the season. That's supposed to be designed going through the rigors of the postseason, and then it culminates in the championship by season's end. Milwaukee won the in-season tournament this year, and then they had that same letdown for about 10 games before they started to pick themselves back up again. Me personally, I think they should scrap it and raise the bar again. Say the 82 games. That's the quote unquote tournament, and if you're good enough to go to the playoffs, you get to the playoffs. It's as simple as that. The people that set the structure for the league, just in sports in general back then, they knew what they were doing, man. You can tell they knew what they were doing because it carried over from the 60s to the 70s. It carried over from the 70s to the 80s. It carried over from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s. They knew what they were doing. Whether it was a white representatives of the league or black representatives of the league, they knew what they were doing. So, in closing, the commissioner just needs to get back to basics, man. And these people trying to dictate trying to say, oh man, they need to do this and do that. Whatever their ideas are is not working. So why don't they just chill out, let the game breathe, and it will gravitate to wherever it needs to be for the current time, dog. And that way you ain't got to talk about the past all the time, and you can focus on right now. Because at the end of the day, they can't change the fact that the guy that they're trying to eradicate from basketball conscious was 6-0 in championship play. Let me put it this way. He was undefeated in championship play. That's the thing that stands out more than anything else. 6 attempts. He left 2 on the table. He was... let me put it this way. And I'm going to end it. When his team matured and played their role definitively, the Pistons knew that's all he needed. Okay? And the Pistons were a great team in their own right. They won back-to-back champions. They beat the Lakers in the finals. They beat the Celtics to get to the finals. So they're a great team. But once Michael Jordan broke through and won that first championship, you never felt going into the first finals, based on the way he played to break through that hex with the Pistons, the obstacle with the Pistons, you knew he was not going to be beaten. That was it. Once Scottie Pippen matured as as a bona fide number 2, Horace Grant is your third, your lunch pail guy. Everybody play their role. That's all that man needed. And when he won that first championship, man, you knew that you could forget it. You was not gonna beat that man in no best 4 out of 7 series. You can forget it. There's only 2 teams that forced Game 7. The 92 Knicks, who had the most intense defense, arguably, that we've ever seen, outside the bad boy Pistons. And then the 98 Pacers, that was coached by Larry Bird. Outside of that, man, in the finals, he never saw a Game 7. Getting him to a Game 6 was like a Game 7. That's how far above the competition he was in terms of his superb ability as a basketball player. So he's the standard, man. It's as simple as that. So I don't want to drop this nugget, man. I just poured my heart. It came out this way. I really meant for this to be like 10 minutes, but it just, you love the league, man, and you want to see it, be what it's supposed to be. Not like it was in the 80s, not like it was in the 90s, but what it's supposed to be for now. Without all the chaos going on, man. That's all I want. And I'm cool as a fan. But, as I said, I wanted to drop this nugget. Until next time, JB for BTB Behind the Bench.